Hi, good afternoon, everyone. In today's class, we are going to go ahead and start with the microeconomics revision. Now, before we start, I just want to give you a heads up that the entire microeconomics is not going to be theoretical. What you would be seeing in your final paper beta, it will include a lot of numericals also. So what you have to go ahead and do is, for every theory that you practice, it must be corresponded with a numerical. पूरी revision series ऐसे ही चलनी है. You need to do a numerical for every theory that you practice. So for example, if you are revising utility concepts, then you need to go ahead and you need to Kritika, I will talk to you separately, huh? We will discuss what can be done. Don't worry. Okay. So for every theory question that you do, you must be accounting it with the numerical. So if you're doing, suppose the concept of utility, then you should know how to go ahead and solve Cobb-Douglas utility function, how to solve substitute good utility function, etc. ये सब solve करना भी आना चाहिए. Only then that would be a full-fledged practice, right? So what I've done in today's session, this is going to be the first session. I'm going to take some more sessions in the future, but हमारा aim क्या रहेगा इसमें? That I go ahead and I tell you the theory part, that is followed by some numericals. Numericals I have written down and I have made a separate solution manual of the numerical. Numerical I will not be discussing in class. मैं उसे discuss नहीं करूंगी class में. Numerical you have to practice, but I will be giving you a full-fledged solution manual just so you can just verify your answers. In another 5-10 minutes, this PDF will be uploaded to your portal. I've just given it to the team. तो ये PDF भी आपके portal पे available होगी and it will be given to you on your Telegram group also. So there is no need to write this down अभी के लिए. You just have to focus on what I am saying and then you can refer to this PDF later on. ठीक है बेटा. So to begin with, the first concept that can come in exam is called as production possibility frontier. मैं quickly इसके through skim through करूंगी. And once you get your notes on the Telegram, one of you just go ahead and just give me a heads up that you have got the notes. हाँ? ठीक है. अब देखो ध्यान से. The first thing that we want to talk about is production possibility frontier. We know that production possibility frontier, it gives us different combinations that can be produced by the economy as a whole. तो अगर मैं बात करूं पॉइंट A से पॉइंट B की, ये मुझे बता रहा है कि A पर गुड X के इतने यूनिट्स प्रोड्यूस हो सकते हैं और Y के इतने हो सकते हैं, और B पर X के इतने हो सकते हैं और Y के इतने हो सकते हैं. Now try to understand that when I am going from A to B, to increase the production of X, अगर मुझे X को बढ़ाना है, I must give up some amount of Y. So I have to give up some amount of Y. So the slope of this PPF, the slope of the production possibility frontier, that is known as opportunity cost. और ये क्या बताता है कि how much do you have to give up one good in order to produce the other good. अब इस PPF से रिलेटेड ना यू कैन गेट मल्टीपल क्वेश्चंस इन एग्जाम. जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल वो आपको बोल सकते हैं व्हाट हैपेंस इफ यू हैव अ PPF व्हिच इज अ लाइन. तो इसमें इसका स्लोप क्या होगा? सो यू हैव टू टेल दैट हियर यू हैव कांस्टेंट अपॉर्चुनिटी कॉस्ट. What happens if your PPF is in fact like this? अगर PPF ऐसा बना हुआ है, rather than concave, it is convex. It means you have decreasing opportunity cost. What happens when your PPF is like this? It means you have increasing opportunity cost. So ये वाला चीज I have covered in one of your assignments and it's there in your mock papers also. But this can be asked in exam, that they can ask you what will happen to the opportunity cost if the PPF is a straight line. तो आपको पता होना चाहिए कि straight line में the PPF is having a constant opportunity cost. That's the first kind of question that can be asked in exam. Now, if I have to go ahead and I have to divide Okay, thank you, beta. So you can open that PDF then. Usse we can do things more quickly. Okay. Now when we talk about microeconomic theory में what all we have to revise, पहले ये समझो. We have to be very sure with different theories of demand. मैं भी दिखाऊंगी what those theories of demand are. Then we have to be sure with the theories of production and cost. उसके बाद ना हमें एक फैक्टर प्राइसिंग के ऊपर एक एनालिसिस पता होना चाहिए. मतलब कि फॉर एग्जांपल if you remember we did something like this, that the wage paid will be equal to real wage paid will be equal to marginal product of labor, or the real rent paid will be equal to the marginal product of capital. तो factor pricing कैसे होती है, that is also important, and you must be aware of the factor pricing concept. इस पे if you go to the basic lectures ना, you will find another chapter completely which talks about factor pricing, and that's an important chapter क्योंकि वो बताता है कि फैक्टर के प्राइस कैसे डिसाइड किए जाते हैं इकोनॉमी में, and you may get an MCQ based on that. Then the next thing that we have to talk about is the theory of economic welfare, and इसमें 3 to 4 more concepts are there जिसमें आपको एकदम certain होना पड़ेगा, like general equilibrium. Definitely it can be asked in exam. Like you have to be very certain with externality concept and with public good. बहुत rare chance है, but they may go ahead and they may ask you a numerical very rarely, but I will do 2-3 numericals on this. They may ask you numerical on asymmetric information or moral hazard. But whatever is important from this numerical side, I will show that to you. मैं आपको बताऊंगी कि कौन से numerical हमको यहाँ पर करने. Now, if you go ahead and you talk about subjects, paper like GATE, paper like CUET, तो उसमें ना sometimes they may go ahead and ask you some names also. Just say who gave the theory of indifference curve? So you should know Hicks and Allen. Who gave the theory of cardinal utility? You should know it as Marshall. So a lot of times they may go ahead and ask you certain names. So before I just go and deep dive into this, if you just go ahead and you look into the portal, you will see these 3 videos are important. एक दिया होगा 100 economists के ऊपर एक वीडियो होगी बेटा. Who gave what? ये important है, बहुत important है, because you have to remember at least these 100 economists कि किसने क्या दिया है. That is important. जैसे if I ask you who gave innovation theory, तो आपको पता होना चाहिए Schumpeter gave innovation theory. That's the first thing. The second thing is मैंने माइक्रो एंड मैक्रो की थ्योरीज पे क्रोनोलॉजी प्रिपेयर की है. राइट, दिस क्रोनोलॉजी एक्चुअली गोज अहेड एंड टेल्स यू कि किस ऑर्डर में थ्योरीज एक्चुअली इकोनॉमी में इकोनॉमिक्स में आई हैं. फॉर एग्जांपल दे में गो अहेड एंड आस्क यू कि आई एम गिविंग यू 4 थ्योरीज. फर्स्ट थ्योरी हो गई, ये आपको क्वेश्चन बैंक में भी दिखेगा सीवेट के. जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल दे में गो अहेड एंड दे में आस्क यू दैट द फर्स्ट थ्योरी इज indifference curve. The second is cardinal utility. The third is revealed preferences. The fourth is say something related to risk, right? Newman-Morgenstern theory. ऐसा कुछ करके 4 theories दे दी. Then they may ask you that arrange them in the chronological order. So in that case, you need to know कि कौन सी theory पहले आई और कौन सी theory बाद में आई. I have to be well aware of that concept. So the years in which these theories were released is also very important. बहुत सारे नहीं याद करने, but at least whatever I have given you in those video, उतना you should be aware of कि which theory came in which year. That is also important. Now there is a concept which is known as dynamics. Dynamics का क्या मतलब रहता है? That if I just go ahead and I tell you that variables are a function of time. जैसे if I tell you that supply depends on price, but it depends on previous year's price. Yeah, I tell you demand depends on price, but it depends on current year price. So whenever I am linking the variable to prices, जब भी हम variable को price से link करते हैं, उसको हम dynamics बोलते हैं. We call that as dynamics. तो इस dynamics की ना बहुत लोगों ने अलग-अलग definitions दी हैं. जैसे for example, हिक्स ने बोला डायनामिक्स के लिए इकोनॉमिक डायनामिक्स those part where every quantity must be dated. So sometimes they may ask you some statements that who stated that economics dynamics is where everything is dated. So ये statements may also be important. Yes, beta 100 economics and micro is also important for IIT, because sometimes in 1 mark questions, they may give you who gave what. Also, if you get selected in the IIT JAM paper, then sometimes IIT will keep its own exam. जैसे पिछली बारी IIT कानपुर ने अपना अलग से एग्जाम रख दिया था, IIT दिल्ली ने अपना अलग से एग्जाम रख दिया था. So in that also they may go ahead and they may give you an MCQ based on the economist. So it is always a good idea to know who gave what, right? Okay. So now we need to go ahead and we need to talk about the demand function. Is my voice low for others also? Okay, cool. Thank you. So demand function very basically just means that we are going ahead and we are writing quantity demanded as a function of different variables. This is very, very basic. Different variables के बारे में, income, price of related good, taste and advertising. Now, you have to remember that most of the time the demand function is a linear function. So अगर वो आपको क्वेश्चन में generalized demand function बोल देते हैं, that consider a general demand function, it means that they are assuming that the demand function is a linear demand function of the format A minus B T. Then we know the law of demand, that there is inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. So I'm just skipping this part, you can read through. अब क्या है कि डिमांड फंक्शन जो डिमांड कर्व है, इट इज डाउनवर्ड स्लोपिंग. बट इफ समवन आस्क्स यू व्हाट इज द रीजन, क्यों है ये डाउनवर्ड स्लोपिंग, किस वजह से, सो बोथ इफेक्ट्स साइमल्टेनियसली, इनकम इफेक्ट एंड सब्स्टिट्यूशन इफेक्ट टुगेदर अकाउंट फॉर द डिमांड फंक्शन टू बी डाउनवर्ड स्लोपिंग. देखो, अगर यहाँ पर एक क्वेश्चन आता है जो मैं बाद में नेक्स्ट सेशन में लूंगी, बट अगर हम बात करते हैं टाइप्स ऑफ गुड्स की, तो हमें पता है कि 3 तरीके के गुड हो सकते हैं, नॉर्मल गुड, इंफीरियर गुड और गिफन गुड. और वी नो दैट देयर आर 2 इफेक्ट्स, वन इज द सब्स्टिट्यूशन इफेक्ट, वन इज द इनकम इफेक्ट. अब ये बहुत बच्चों ने मेरे से बहुत बारी ग्रुप पे पूछा है दैट मैम शुड वी ऑलवेज एज्यूम कि सब्स्टिट्यूशन इफेक्ट इज नेगेटिव. तो 90% of the authors, when they tell the concept of substitution good, they will say that it is negative. तो अगर क्वेश्चन में उन्होंने स्पेसिफाई कर दिया सपोज that the substitution effect is positive for normal goods, then what happens to income effect? फिर मैं कुछ नहीं कर सकते, we can't do anything, because क्वेश्चन में उन्होंने स्पेसिफाई कर दिया कि substitution effect is positive for normal goods. Then don't negate the question. ये ना हो कि आप करके ना हो कि अरे उन्होंने तो substitution effect को positive बोल दिया, the question is incorrect. ना, 90% of the time, yes, we will go ahead and say that substitution effect is negative. But अगर substitution effect positive question में लिख दिया गया है normal good के लिए, तो just remember that substitution effect and income effect move in the same direction for normal good. This is more important to remember. So, you know, if I'm saying that this is this, then this is also this for normal good. Agar by chance in question they have told me that substitution effect is positive, then I will also assume income effect to be positive. उनको same direction में move करना जरूरी है. That is what is more important to us, right? So you just have to assume that this is negative, this is negative. If this is negative, this is positive. If this is negative, this is positive. और इसमें ये greater है और ये greater है. So therefore we can assume that the demand, law of demand, is followed for the normal good, क्योंकि income effect और substitution effect दोनों ही negative हैं. Here, because final effect negative है, the law of demand is followed, inverse relation between price and quantity. Only here law of demand is not followed. यहाँ पे law of demand follow नहीं किया जाता है. So when we talk about the reason why demand curve is downward sloping, don't write only substitution effect. Actually ये दोनों इफेक्ट मिलाकर बोलते हैं that the demand curve will be downward sloping. There is another thing which you have to remember. देखो, there is, again, I will do it in the next revision session. There is something which is known as compensated demand curve. ये जो compensated demand curve है ना, this is based only on substitution effect. तो compensated demand curve is always downward sloping even for given goods. ये given goods के लिए भी downward sloping ही होता है. So just remember that the compensated demand curve is always so this is what I am saying, beta. So many foreign authors, what they say is that when price of the good increases, quantity demanded of the good will decrease, right? This is my total effect. Now I have to break this in two parts, substitution effect and income effect. Okay. Now when I am saying that I am talking about substitution effect, ideally substitution effect says that when price of the good increases, it becomes relatively expensive. And when it becomes relatively expensive, you should decrease its demand. So the price and quantity move in opposite direction, and hence substitution effect is negative. Yehi hai concept, that substitution effect is negative. But I am saying that suppose उन्होंने ऐसा लिख दिया क्वेश्चन में that consider normal good with positive substitution effect, then the income effect will be. ऐसा कुछ अगर उन्होंने लिख दिया, they have assumed that this has positive substitution effect, फिर हम क्या करेंगे? तो I am just saying कि एक चीज हमें normal goods की बस ये याद रखनी है that substitution and income effect will also move in the same direction. तो अगर हमें बोल दिया गया है that this is positive, then I will have to mark positive as the answer. I cannot think about what will happen to the law of demand, क्योंकि law of demand तो कहता है कि ये negative होना चाहिए, right? Just that I am saying कि actually this statement is incorrect. It should have been negative. But अगर आपको क्वेश्चन में ये पॉजिटिव दे दिया गया है, then just mark income effect also as positive. मतलब ये मत करके आना that you will not mark anything. It should in fact be positive. That is what I wanted to focus on. You're right, right? Otherwise, law of demand will be violated. That is absolutely correct. वो एकदम ठीक बात है. अच्छा, then I am just skipping these names. ये names एक बार पढ़ लेना. This is available on your portal. अच्छा, दो इफेक्ट्स हैं जो हमें पढ़ने हैं. एक है Veblen इफेक्ट, एक है Giffen good. इस पे भी ना yesterday only you were asking me this question. ऐसा suppose एक statement है. So this comes a lot in a lot of exams. Even IIT में this can be asked. Suppose वो ऐसा कुछ बोल देते हैं. They go ahead and they ask you that consider when price of good increased, the demand of good increased. This implies that the good must be inferior good. When price increased, demand of good increased. This implies that the good must be inferior good. सबसे important बात बेटा, एक तो ये inferior good जो होते हैं वो law of demand को follow करते हैं. They follow the law of demand. तो inferior तो नहीं हो सकता. This can at max be a given good कि price increase हुआ तो demand increase हो गई. But now you guys will argue with me कि मैम अगर price increase हो रहा है और quantity demanded is also increasing, it means that it is not obeying the law of demand, so it is a given good. And every given good is also inferior, so it becomes an inferior good. So can't we just say that it is an inferior good? Well, यहाँ पर ये चीज बहुत important है याद रखनी that this law of demand is violated for other goods also. तो जरूरी थोड़ी है कि given good ही रहा होगा. It may be the case that it may have been a Veblen good. Veblen goods are those goods where you have a prestige value attached to it. कि ठीक है, I did not, मतलब the moment the price of the good will decrease, like price of diamond decreases, then those rich people will stop demanding the quantity of diamond. Or when price of BMW will decrease, then people will stop, demanding BMW. So इस case में I cannot go ahead and I cannot say that this is always an inferior good. What if it is a Veblen good? So is this statement always true? No. It is a false statement, right? I cannot always say that it will be a given good. So beta, Veblen goods are those goods where we are going ahead and we are saying that they are not obeying the law of demand, but it is due to prestige value. So for example, I am very rich and I want to go ahead and buy some diamonds to show that I am rich. Ab agar diamonds all of a sudden become cheap, then I will not buy diamonds. So I am reducing my demand when the price is falling because of the prestige. यहाँ पे prestige involved है, उस prestige की वजह से मैं ये कर रही हूँ. That is why it is called a Veblen good. Law of demand is not being followed, but in the background we have the prestige value in this case, right? Okay. Then this is the market demand curve. Beta, this is a question I am leaving to yourself. Iska solution I have provided separately in a separate PDF. So what I have done is, जितने भी questions आपको इस booklet में दिखेंगे that I am preparing, for that question booklet, I have prepared a separate solution manual. I will be posting this solution manual on your portal. So you just go ahead and you just compare your answers with this solution manual. Now, जब हम मार्केट डिमांड की बात करते हैं तो मार्केट डिमांड बेसिकली क्या बताता है? मार्केट डिमांड इज एडिंग द डिमांड ऑफ इंडिविजुअल people together. So one thing that we have to, that can be asked in exam is that market demand curve is inelastic as compared to individual demand curve. है ना? तो बस ये याद रखना है हमें कि जब हम मार्केट डिमांड की बात करते हैं, व्हाट इज हैपनिंग? I have an individual demand of individual A. I have a demand for individual B. So supposedly I take a price. I say price is 4. And at this price, I say A is demanding 2 units and B is demanding 3 units. So in total, I will be having 5 units being demanded. So what will happen? This demand curve will be flatter. And we know that flatter the demand curve, what happens to the elasticity? Can someone tell me? The flatter the demand curve, the more or less the elasticity? Okay. The flatter the demand curve, the more elastic it is. So we are correct that it becomes more elastic. So is it becoming less elastic? False. ऐसे statements can be asked in exam and you have to be very thorough with it. यहाँ पर I just want to focus on one more thing. This can be asked in exam again. Suppose बेटा आपको एक 2 इंडिविजुअल दिए हुए हैं. आपका जो फर्स्ट इंडिविजुअल है ना, उसका डिमांड कर्व है 5 minus BA, PA. This is the quantity of first individual. और quantity of second individual दी हुई है suppose 10 minus PB. And I'm asking you find market demand, and sometimes it will ask you find equilibrium price या equilibrium quantity. Supply curve दे देंगे आपको. Just remember one thing. Just tell me something. देखो what happens when price of the good is 6 rupees. अगर price, not 6 actually, if the price is anything greater than equal to 5, अगर price 5 rupees से ज्यादा है, then what will happen in the market? Beta, individual A will not demand any quantity. It will just demand 0 units. Any price greater than 5. देखो price अगर 5.1 हुआ, 5.2, 5.3, 6, 7, 8 कुछ भी डालो यहाँ पे 5 से ज्यादा, तो इसकी क्वांटिटी तो नेगेटिव हो रही है. And if its quantity is negative, it automatically means that this individual will not demand. तो इसका implication ही ये हो गया हमारे लिए that if my price in the market is greater than equal to 5, then the market demand curve will only be the demand of individual B. So I cannot just directly add. मैं एकदम से ऐड नहीं करके बोल सकती हूँ कि अच्छा ठीक है मार्केट डिमांड कर्व विल बी 15 minus PA minus PB ऐसा कुछ. Yeah, you can just bring price on one side and just add the quantities together. ऐसा नहीं कर सकते. We can't do this. we need to see that what is going to happen to the demand post 5. And if the price is greater than 5, then my market demand is only going to be the demand of individual B. And this has been asked multiple times in DSC. In earlier days, ये DSC में बहुत common question होता था. So we need to remember that when I am just plotting this for individual A, this is going to be 5 here and 5 here. ये हो जाएगा price, ये हो जाएगा quantity. When I am plotting for individual B, but this is going to be 10 here and 10 here. ये हो जाएगा price और ये हो जाएगा quantity. So when I am going to add the two demands together, तो ये 5 तक तो demand add हो रही है. मतलब suppose example के लिए, if I tell you the price is 4. So individual 1 will demand 1 unit A, and individual 2 will demand, say, at price 4, 6 units. So total demand you can calculate. But anything above this price of 5, then this itself will become the market demand curve, because there is only demand by individual B. तो मेरा final market demand curve कैसा दिखेगा? It will be this part common with individual B, and here it will become flatter, क्योंकि हर B के demand में I will add the demand of A. I will add the demand of A. So the market demand curve must have this component also, where there is zero demand by individual A. ये आपको समझना बहुत जरूरी है. Directly एकदम से अंधाधुंध नहीं ऐड करना है हमें. We need to understand कि ऐसा कोई part भी हो सकता है where the other individual is not demanding. Yes, you can call it as a step function or a kinged demand function, right? So this is also important. Okay. Now we have factors determining demand. I am leaving this to you, beta. Just read this out. Income, taste, substitute good prices, income, good prices. ये एक बारी पढ़ लेना. Now just talk about the derived demand. So derived demand is that demand, वो चीजों की demand जिनकी demand is derived from something else. So for example, inputs. Inputs have their demand derived from the final goods, right? So for example, if I tell you that 1 unit of the good requires 4 labor and 5 units of capital, and now I am telling you that I want to produce more of these goods, so I will demand more labor. मेरी labor की demand भी बढ़ जाएगी, मेरी capital की demand भी बढ़ जाएगी. This, when I increase the demand of labor and capital, इसको बोलते हैं derived demand. So increasing the demand of the raw material is the derived demand. Okay. अब हम बात करते हैं बेटा network externalities के बारे में. So what is a network externality? Whenever you increase the demand of the product because of your network. मतलब I saw that my friend was going to a particular cafe and I also started going to that cafe. That is called as network externality. That I am doing something. मैं कुछ ऐसा कर रही हूँ. Why am I doing it? Because my friend was also going ahead and doing it. So I started. इस चीज को हम network externality बोलते हैं. Network externality can be divided in two parts: bandwagon effect and snob effect. Bandwagon effect is that effect which involves network externality due to fashion. Just for example, all of us are aware that I'm not sure abhi kya latest fashion hai, but for example, abhi tak everybody was using, say, a particular kind of phone. And now because another phone is in fashion, you start using that phone. So that is a bandwagon effect. Matlab, because you are influenced by fashion. Jaise aajkal there is so much social influencers, right? So if I just look at those influencers and I just wear whatever they are wearing, I am demanding a particular good. मैं उस चीज की demand इसलिए कर रही हूँ because the other people are telling me कि ये चीज तो fashion में है. Then that is known as a bandwagon effect. The second thing that we have is called a snob effect. तो snob effect क्या होता है? That you demand something which is rare. So I want to pay a very high price for something because it is having it is very rare and it is having very prestige value. जैसे for example, a particular painting. ये बहुत ही unique चीज है, market में available ही नहीं है. So I will go ahead and I will buy that thing just to show that, you know, I can afford it due to my prestige. So that is called as the snob effect. ये दोनों ही इफेक्ट्स बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है एंड यू शुड बी अवेयर बिटवीन द डिफरेंस. व्हाट इज अ नेटवर्क इफेक्ट वो पता होना चाहिए. What is bandwagon effect and what is snob effect? We should be very, very clear with those concepts. अब हम कंज्यूमर थ्योरी पे बात करते हैं. So these are some names that you have to remember. Just read it out, huh? I am leaving it up to you. Huh. So many people ask whether snob effect is on Veblen goods or not. Ideally, yes. Veblen goods also say that you are going ahead and you are, buying those goods which have prestige value. And snob effect is also very similar in nature. But snob effect में ना, I can create an additional zone. मतलब जैसे for example, Veblen effect, I am purchasing due to prestige, but it may not be rare. Right? I am going to the shop, I am buying diamonds. Yeah, I am buying BMW because I want to show you that I am rich. ये हो गया Veblen good. But snob में I may go one step ahead and I may want to buy something which is also rare. मतलब एक ऐसी कार जो और कहीं किसी के पास ना हो या ऐसी पेंटिंग जो किसी के पास ना हो. So snob effect will have rare items included in them. But that's the little difference that you can think. ठीक है. तो ये कुछ नेम्स हैं बेटा. यू जस्ट रिमेंबर दीज नेम्स. आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू टॉक अबाउट दैट. मैं सिर्फ कार्डिनल और ऑर्डिनल यूटिलिटी के बारे में ऊपर ऊपर से बात कर रही हूँ. यू नीड टू रीड दिस पीडीएफ. सो व्हेन आई टॉक अबाउट कार्डिनल यूटिलिटी कॉन्सेप्ट, cardinal utility in very simple terms means that you are calculating your utility in terms of numbers. Or whenever you will calculate utility in terms of numbers, तो उन नंबर में जब हम कैलकुलेट करते हैं, they are called as utils. जैसे फॉर एग्जाम्पल आई में से आई एम गेटिंग यूटिलिटी ऑफ 4 utils, 10 utils, 11 utils, ऐसे. दिस कॉन्सेप्ट वाज गिवन बाय मार्शल. इसमें बहुत सारी प्रॉब्लम्स हैं. हाँ, जैसे फॉर एग्जाम्पल, हाउ विल आई नो एग्जैक्टली हाउ टू गिव यूटिलिटी टू अ पर्टिकुलर थिंग. मुझे कैसे पता कि इसको 4 यूटिल दूं या 6 यूटिल? I don't know that, right? So that is one big problem with this cardinal utility concept. And because of this problem, we know that we came to the concept of ordinality. ये जो ordinal utility concept है ना, this ordinal utility concept basically, it talks about you ranking things. So I just want to go ahead and I just want to tell in terms of ranking whether the bundle A is preferred over B or not. And this concept was given by Hicksian Allen. ठीक है. तो अगर आप यहां पर आओगे बेटा, यहां पर ना I have talked about some of the properties of cardinality. इसमें one question that many of you had doubt in, so I'm taking those common doubts from the Telegram group. What is marginal utility of money? ये बहुत लोगों ने मुझसे आपने पूछा. Very simple concept. The additional utility that you get from one additional rupee. मतलब अगर मैं आपको एक एक्स्ट्रा पैसा दे दूं, एक एक्स्ट्रा रुपी दे दूं और आपको बोलूं कि अच्छा कितना एक्स्ट्रा यूटिलिटी मिला, दैट इज मार्जिनल यूटिलिटी ऑफ मनी. अब मैथमेटिकल कॉन्सेप्ट समझो. अब बेटा यू रिमेंबर दैट देयर इज समथिंग व्हिच इज नोन एज कंस्ट्रेन्ड ऑप्टिमाइजेशन. मतलब we want to go ahead and maximize our utility subject to the budget constraint. हम ये करते हैं, है ना? There is a complete chapter on this अगर आपको पढ़ना हो तो. Now, if I just want to go ahead and write this in the form of a Lagrange, अगर मैं इसको Lagrange में लिखूं तो मैं कैसे लिख सकती हूँ? बच्चा, I will write UL is equal to, I will write the objective function plus lambda, and then I will go ahead and write the budget constraint. और जब मैं ये budget constraint लिखूंगी ना, how will I write this? I will go ahead and write M minus Px into X minus Py into Y. This becomes my Lagrange. Some people will write Lagrange like this. This is also correct. दोनों method ठीक है. There is nothing wrong with this also. Both are correct. Now, इस Lagrange में इस lambda को, ये जो lambda, the lambda that you see here, but this is called as Lagrange multiplier. And this Lagrange multiplier is इसकी डेरिवेशन क्या है? हाउ डू आई डिराइव दिस? दिस is actually gone ahead, and this is something that tells me the marginal utility of income. मतलब अगर मैं ये प्रॉब्लम को सॉल्व करूं, अगर मैं अपनी यूटिलिटी को मैक्सिमाइज करूं, मतलब मैं इसको डिफरेंशिएट कर दूं x से, डिफरेंशिएट करूं y से, डिफरेंशिएट करूं लैम्डा से, ये सब करने के बाद अगर मैं लैम्डा की वैल्यू निकालूं, इफ आई फाइंड आउट द वैल्यू ऑफ लैम्डा, तो वो जो लैम्डा की वैल्यू होगी, दैट इज योर मार्जिनल यूटिलिटी ऑफ इनकम. I have done this in my maths lectures. If you want, you can read that chapter. उसमें से आप इस लैम्डा को निकालना सीख सकते हो. It is not very difficult. But अभी के लिए you just have to remember that this Lagrange multiplier, this represents the marginal utility of income. तो इसका वैल्यू अगर सपोज ऐसा कुछ आ गया, m/2 px py ऐसा कुछ आ गया, तो दिस इज टेलिंग मी कि मेरी यूटिलिटी कितने से चेंज होगी जब मेरी इनकम चेंज होगी, व्हेन माय इनकम विल गो अहेड एंड चेंज. ठीक है, सो ये दिस इज एज्यूम्ड टू बी कांस्टेंट बाय मार्शल. मार्शल ने एज्यूम किया कि ये जो मार्जिनल यूटिलिटी ऑफ मनी है, वी विल एज्यूम दैट एज कांस्टेंट. Okay, then just read through this. This is just a concept between total utility, marginal utility. अब इन दो concepts पे आ जाते हैं. So there are two concepts that you have to remember. एक को हम बोल सकते हैं law of equi-marginal utility. हाँ बेटा, Lagrange नहीं शो कर रहा. Lagrange multiplier is showing marginal utility of money, not Lagrange. हाँ, Lagrange तो पूरा का पूरा, this entire equation is Lagrange, but this lambda, this is Lagrange multiplier, and this tells me the marginal utility of money. Okay, fine. So then you have to go ahead and you have to remember two laws. One is law of equi-marginal utility, one is law of diminishing marginal utility. दोनों के ही बारे में I have gone ahead and I have written it. Just remember, पढ़ लेना वो, but just remember कि equi-marginal utility, it says I can apply it to two things. First of all, I must remember that if I am given a single good, अगर मुझे सिर्फ एक good दिया होगा, so MUX by PX has to be equated to MUM. But अगर मुझे दो goods दिए होंगे, तो MUX by PX must be equated to MUY by PY must be equated to MUM. Now, when you will go to the problem set, जो मैंने इसी booklet में दिया है, I have given you a question on three goods. ठीक है, suppose मेरा question ये है that U is equal to ln x plus 4 ln y plus ln z. हाँ, and they give you some prices. Px is equal to 1, Py is equal to 4, Pz is equal to 3. ऐसे करके दे दिया. Then it does not mean that I cannot apply utility function to, this concept to three goods. I can still apply this. हाँ, diagrammatically it will be a 3D diagram. मतलब जब हम 2D space में करते हैं, when we say that MUX by PX is equal to MUY by PI, तो इसको मैं rewrite कर सकती हूँ कि if MUX by PX is equal to MUY by PY, so this means that MUX by MUY will be equal to PX by PY. तो इसका मतलब हो गया that MRS will be equal to PX by PY. तो diagrammatically तो simple हो गया that this means that I will have this as my point of equilibrium, है ना, wherever there is tangency condition, यही मतलब हो गया. अब अगर तीन goods हैं, if I have three goods involved, so in that case I will have some 3D diagram, right? There are good X, Y and Z. So you don't have to start imagining कि अब 3D diagram में क्या होगा, but you can just still follow the same rule. You can still go ahead and say that MUX by PX must be equal to MUY by PY must be equal to MUZ by PZ. So it's something which is applicable to multiple goods, right? Goods will not impact my solution. You have to remember that. इसी पे there is a problem question and you must go ahead and solve that question. दूसरा है law of diminishing marginal utility. All of us know that as consumption increases, marginal utility will decline. There are some limitations, बेटा ये पढ़ लेना. अच्छा, now this is good. So now all of us know कि जब हम डिमांड कर्व को डिराइव कर रहे थे, we derived this demand curve using price offer curve. हमने POC यूज किया था. We plotted the price offer curve, then नीचे we plotted the demand curve. It was a 2D diagram. यहाँ पे ऊपर किया था, नीचे किया था. Right? This is what we have done to derive the demand curve. But there is another way to derive the demand curve, and this derivation of the demand curve was given by Marshall. इसमें बहुत सारे there were multiple limitations. That is why it was not being used a lot. But ये derivation ये बोलता है that I can go ahead and I can derive the demand curve using the concept of utilities also, which we have never done. We did not go ahead and derive the demand curve based on utility. जब हमने ये demand curve derive किया था, we made that price offer curve and all. We derived this demand curve following the law of demand. है ना? But here we are saying that Marshall derived this demand curve following the concept of utility. उन्होंने utility का concept को use किया. And what did he went ahead and do? So beta, what he did is he assumed that imagine that you have constant marginal utility of income. And उन्होंने क्या equilibrium discuss किया था that MUX by PX should be equal to MUM. So he made a curve and he called this curve as MUX by PX curve. And he said that wherever this MUX by PX will be equal to MUM, जहां पे भी ये दोनों intersect कर रहे होंगे, that is where I can go ahead and find my equilibrium. मैं यहाँ पर अपना equilibrium निकाल सकता हूँ. Then he asked, suppose your price of good X will increase. Then what will happen? Yeah, decrease. Any one thing you can take. So suppose price of good X decreases. So the denominator is decreasing. If the denominator is decreasing, then MUX by PX will increase. So then he said that suppose the price of good X will decrease. Now what I can go ahead and do is, I can go ahead and make a separate curve. एक और separate curve बना देते हैं. And I can go ahead and I can call this as MUX by PX dash. ये price decrease होने के बाद का curve हो गया. And now I can just go ahead and I can say that, okay, my quantity has increased to Q dash. तो अब क्या दिखाया बेटा हमने? Same concept, that when price of the good decreased, quantity increased. पहले price was PX, quantity was Q star. Then price is P dash, PX dash, quantity is Q dash. So when my price is decreasing, quantity is increasing, and this became the demand curve according to him. अब इसमें several limitations were there. भाई जो भी marginal utility की limitations हैं, how will you calculate marginal utility? How will you calculate marginal utility of income? How will you go ahead and how will you do it when there is more than one good? So there were several things, several limitations. तो ये इसको कभी भी हमने long run में follow नहीं किया है. So that is what is given here. Just read it out. हाँ, ये एक बारी पढ़ लेना. This talks about all of that. Now I want to go ahead and I want to focus on the concept of indifference curve. And what are the different assumptions that we assume under the indifference curve? ठीक है. अब बेटा जब हम indifference curve की assumptions की बात करते हैं, so under that we can go ahead and we can consider that we have completeness. I will just revise what it is. So otherwise you will forget. So completeness just says that you will be able to go ahead and you will be able to rank different bundles. मतलब you should be able to go ahead and you should be able to tell whether you prefer A over B or B over A or you are indifferent between A and B. ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए that you go ahead and you say, I don't know. So completeness goes ahead and it says that you must be able to rank different bundles. आप इन bundles को rank कर पाओ. This is important. Then we have transitivity. Transitivity says कि if A is preferred over B, B is preferred over C, then A is preferred over C. अगर मैं A और B के बीच में indifferent हूँ, B और C के बीच में indifferent हूँ, then I am indifferent between A and C also. Then we have monotonicity. It says more is preferred. Jitna zyada, utna preferred. Then you have continuity. This is important. It just says my ICs should not be discontinuous. But if you go to my lectures on microeconomics, variant के जो हमने lectures लिए बेटा, वहां पर you will find discrete good concept explained. वहां पर discontinuity होती है. Like for example, if I talk about goods which are indivisible, जैसे TV, either you will consume 1 TV or 2 TV. ऐसा तो नहीं हो सकता ना, you will consume 1.11 TV. So if you take, we rarely will do discrete goods in micro. हम usually continuous good assume करते हैं. But if I take here that I have a discrete indivisible good like TV, so either I will have 1 unit, or I will have 2 unit, or I will have 3 unit. So I will not have a function like this. I will not have a curve like this. You will be showing this with dotted line, representing that this is a discrete good. I can just consume it in fixed numbers, right? So just see this diagram once. It is there in the video lectures also, but you should be aware that discontinuity is possible. As if you talk about lexicographic preferences. So what are lexicographic preferences? Lexicographic preferences are those preferences where you will always prefer more of that good which you're lexicographically preferring. Just say example, when I say lex x to y, इसका मतलब ये है कि मेरे को x चाहिए over y. So if you go ahead and you tell me that there are 2 bundles, 1 unit of x, 100 units of y, and 0 unit of x, but 1 lakh units of y, then I will prefer this bundle. I want to prefer the bundle which has x over the bundle which has y. I am not concerned ki kitna y, but I want to prefer that bundle which has more of x. If both bundles have same amount of x, then I can go for the bundle which has more of y. But otherwise, I will always go for the bundle which has more of x. Now, in lexicographic preferences, we know that the ICs are just singleton. Singleton matlab ki they are just points. So each point, it represents a different IC. हर एक में अलग मेरी preference होगी. Because you can compare. देखो, if I compare A with B, तो B has more of X. So I will prefer B over A. If I compare A with C, then they have same amount of X, but C has more of Y. So I will prefer C over A. Right? If I compare A with A dash, very, very close, तो भी A dash has more of X. So I will prefer A dash over A. So at no point will it happen that two bundles give you the same amount of utility. दोनों का utility बहुत ही अलग होगा. Now, suppose in exam, they give you that you have lex x to y and they give you some income level. Income is 100. Price of good x is 4. Price of good y is 5. या कम ले लो. Price of good y 1 लो. To increase some confusion. And then they ask you calculate the optimal bundle x star y star. So lex x to y means that the consumer will always go for x. Even when x is expensive, I don't care what the price of x is. I will always spend all my income on good x. So in this case, जो मेरा x star हो जाएगा, that will be m by px. My income is 100. Price of good x is 4. So I will be consuming 25 units of good x, 0 unit of good y. Always remember, lex preferences mean you will only consume the good whichever has lex attached to it. दूसरे को consume नहीं करना है. It will be consumed in 0 units. Unless वो good free ही हो. Then I don't care. You give me any amount of that good. The free है ना, I'm not spending money on it. Right? So this is what lex preferences mean. And again, it means that I don't have continuity attached. Ideally, yes, you can say that they're inelastic because the increase in price will not change their demand. You will go for that good only. Correct. Now we can talk about convexity. So again, this is important. Many of you are confused ki how will I know whether we can apply this rule or not. MRS is equal to PX by PY. This rule can only be applied when you have convexity being applied. And convexity means that you should have diminishing MRS. And how can I see whether I have diminishing MRS or not? तो पहले हमें MRS निकालना होगा बेटा. And once you have found out the MRS, you will differentiate the MRS with respect to good X because I am taking X good on the X-axis. And if this is less than 0, only then you will apply this rule. If it is increasing MRS, that means you should have a corner solution. Is case में you will not have this interior solution. Take an example. I will give you a simple example. U is equal to XY. What is my MRS in this case? MRS is going to be MUX by MUY. When I will differentiate this function with respect to good X, I will get Y. When I will differentiate it with respect to Y, I will get X. So the MRS that I have got in this case, that is Y by X. Now what I'm asking you to do is check how MRS is changing as X changes. So if I will differentiate this with respect to X beta, तो क्या मिल जाएगा? Minus Y by X square. Because 1 by X का differentiation will be minus 1 by X square. This is clearly negative because consumption of goods is positive. यहाँ एक negative sign है. This is negative. Therefore, I can say that you have diminishing MRS. इस case में you will apply the rule that MRS equal to PX by PY. Now consider this. U is equal to X square plus Y square. Find out the MRS. MRS will be MUX by MUY. Differentiate with respect to X, to X. With respect to Y, to Y. So MRS हो गया बेटा X by Y. Now find out how MRS changes as X changes. You will get 1 by Y. This is positive. I think this was there in last year's GATE exam. 90% students did this wrong. They said, उन्होंने सीधा MRS is equal to PX by PY कर दिया. Now, this is increasing MRS. If it is increasing MRS, the only thing that we can go ahead and do is have a corner solution. So you have to consume the good whichever is cheaper. So अब मेरे को पता चल गया that there is increasing MRS. So if PX is less than PY, I will consume all of good X. If PX is greater than PY, all of good Y. But if PX and PY are equal also, then either all of good X or all of good Y. Combination नहीं consume कर सकते हैं. Either you will consume all of good X or you will consume all of good Y, but not both. So this is how you have to go ahead and you will have to check for the corner solution. Yes, you will always have corner solution for concave preferences, right? So this is your answer. तो convexity check करना जरूरी है before you jump into finding the solution. In X plus Y, yes, you're right. So if my utility function is just X plus Y, then if PX is less than PY, all of X. If PX is greater than PY, all of Y. But if PX is equal to PY, either all of X or all of Y or some X and some Y. Matlab, this thing is possible when you have the utility function as X plus Y. Exactly. हाँ, so concave preferences are not substitutes, beta. Concave preferences are those goods which give you positive utility, but they cannot be consumed together, like wine and milk. I like wine, I like milk, but I cannot consume wine and milk together. That is concave preference. That is what is happening there. They're not substitutes of each other. Okay. Last is that my IC should be downward sloping. Now, very, very commonly asked question in multiple entrance exams. Example, if they give you which of the following utility function represent same preferences. And they give you 4 options. A, ऐसा कुछ दे देते हैं, ln x plus ln y, root x plus root y whole square, x to the power half, y to the power half, x plus y whole square. ऐसा कुछ, then they say that a and c, a, b and c, ऐसे करके they will give you options. It means they're asking you about monotonic transformation. Monotonic transformation के ऊपर क्वेश्चन बहुत कॉमन है आना. What I have to go ahead and see is I have to check the MRS. If two utility functions have the same MRS, one is a transformation of the other. Just for example, if you have your utility function xy, you have your utility function ln x plus ln y. In दोनों में ही MRS will come down to be y by x. So if two utility functions have same MRS, it means that one is a transformation of the other. And we know that when utility function is of this format, इसमें x star का value is m by 2px, y star का value is m by 2py. तो मतलब इस utility function का भी final answer यही होगा. We don't have to solve in exam. We don't have time for that. We simply have to use the property कि ठीक है, it's a Cobb-Douglas. This also represents Cobb-Douglas because it has same MRS. और इसके केस में इसका आंसर ये होता है, which means that this will also have the same answer. Now this is very useful when they will trick you with a utility function like this. ध्यान से देखना. If I give you x square plus 4xy plus 4y, let me just frame something, plus 100a square plus 20b square plus c plus 40. ऐसा कुछ दे दिया. Then they ask you, price of good x is 2, price of good y is 2. Income of the consumer is 100. The optimal consumption bundle will be. It may seem that this is very tricky, but this is one of the easiest question you can get. अब ध्यान से देखो क्या करना है हमें यहाँ पे. देखो, I am not concerned about constants. The constants are the first way of monotonic transformation. मतलब अगर मेरा utility function xy है and इसमें I add some constant a, it will not change my utility function का MRS क्योंकि ये तो constant है ना. So when I will find mux, ये हट जाएगा. When I will differentiate it with respect to x, this is just a constant. It will go away. So it will simply be y. When I will find muy, it will simply be x. So my MRS will still be y by x. So constants are the first way to do monotonic transformation. And the first thing when you will look at utility function, और जब भी आपको constant दिखेगा, आप simply उसको हटा दोगे. उसका कोई मतलब ही नहीं. So this is what has happened here. यहाँ पर these are my multiple constants. और constant का in utility function में is, this is y square beta. Constant का utility function में there is no use. So this will be eliminated. सबसे पहली बात हमने इसको eliminate करना है. Then we have to go ahead and check, okay, does this resemble something? Yes. When I have a square plus 2ab plus b square, it can be written as a plus b whole square. So if I have this utility function, x square plus 4xy plus 4y square, but I can rewrite this thing as x plus 2y whole square. अब हमें पता चल गया that actually the function inside this is just this, x plus 2y. So actually speaking, my utility function is not very big. My utility function is just x plus 2y. And this actually goes ahead and this represents substitute goods. तो इस पूरी चीज जो इतना बड़ा दिया हुआ था, actually they are just talking about substitute goods. So my utility function is just x plus 2y. Now we know how to solve this. We know that MRS is MUX by MUY. So MRS will be 1 by 2. And we know that PX by PY is given to us as 1 by 1. Here 2 by 2 hai na? So 2 by 2 is just 1. And then we can just use the property that if my MRS is less than PX by PY, then in substitute good, we will consume all of good Y. हम सिर्फ good Y को ही consume करते हैं when MRS is less than PX by PY. तो all of good Y में कितना Y consume कर सकते हो? M by PY. कितना X consume कर सकते हो? 0. You're putting all your money on good Y. So your income is given to you as 100. Price of good Y is 2. So you will be consuming 50 units of good Y. So monotonic transformation is one of the most important concept from the point of view of exam. Why? Because in that, they will definitely go ahead and ask you such kind of question. थोड़ा सा transform कर देंगे. A lot of times they will transform root x plus root y whole square. ऐसा कुछ कर देंगे. या something they will do. But in the background, आपने उस utility function को पहले देखा होगा. You would have seen that utility function and you would know how to solve that. It's just that you have to use your mind at that point. That does this resemble something or not? We will just neglect square beta because square will not change my MRS, na? And all I am concerned about is MRS. Matlab, even if you find the MRS of this, dekh lo, ek bari. Even if you find the MRS of this, so what will be MUX? Just apply chain rule 2x plus 2y into 1. When you find MUY, apply the chain rule 2x plus 2y into 2. So MRS will be, this will get cancelled half. So because this is just a monotonic transformation, MRS change nahi ho raha, it is not getting affected. So it does not matter. I don't want to consider square. Yes, you're right. Correct. Achha, one more thing. Don't get confused if instead of plus, they have given some minus. Usse kuch farak nahi padega. Suppose here it was minus 100, minus 50 divided by A plus 700A. Even if there is a minus sign, does not matter. That is still a constant. That is still a monotonic transformation. So I should not be concerned. So plus or minus, multiplication or division, it should not affect you. Answer same hi rahega. It will remain the same. Okay, coming back to where we were. Okay, I have, Khushi, I have recorded a separate video on differentiation only. Post the lecture, just remind me on the Telegram group. I will share that lecture of differentiation. It will help. Okay. So then this is done. Just read out these properties once. Substitute goods, I have told you. Just remember the condition that if MRS is less than PX by PY, you will consume all of good Y. How to remember? कैसे याद रख सकते हैं? ये भी देख लो बेटा. Always, to remember this, always put MRS equal to 1. जो भी आपका MRS आए हो, मुझे कोई फर्क नहीं है. Suppose you solved the question and you got MRS as 0.75 and you got PX by PY as 4. I don't care. When you have to go ahead and you have to compare, जब ये कर रहे होगे तो क्या करना है, एक बारी के लिए just plug MRS as 1 here. Why? Because the moment you will plug 1 here, you will get 1 less than PX by PY, PY less than PX, good Y is cheaper. So this tells me that you will consume all of good Y. So यहाँ से ये condition बन के आई है that when MRS is less than PX by PY, you should consume all of good Y. The best way to remember this is substitute MRS with 1 and then find the condition कि कौन सा good cheaper है. Then go back to your question and see कि ठीक है, in my question MRS is 0.75, PX by PY is 4, this condition is satisfied, and in this condition I was consuming all of good Y. So I will consume all of good Y in this case. Okay. Then the second thing that you have to remember is complementary good. Complementary good may, otherwise it is easy that whatever comes inside the min function, you will equate this. Ye wala part to easy hai. What is difficult is how to frame these complementary good functions. So for example, if you are given that a consumer always likes to consume one tea with 2 teaspoons of sugar. ऐसा कुछ दे दिया, हाँ? And then they ask you which of the following utility function represent this. ऐसा करके कर दिया. And tea को they have written it with X and teaspoon को, sugar को they have written it with Y. And then they give you min of X comma 2Y, min of 2X comma Y, X plus 2Y, Y plus 2X. A very often asked question in exam. तो क्या करें? What will we do? Remember, whenever you are given I didn't get it. Py will always be less than pxy. In this case, kya? In whenever your MRS is less than px by py, you just have to check, put 1 here, check. You will always get py less than px, so you will consume all of y. Whenever your MRS is greater than px by py, तो यहाँ पे 1 plug करो. 1 greater than px by py, py greater than px, so you will consume all of x. Then compare it with your case. तो हमें यहाँ से पता चल गया that when this is there, तो all of good y. When this is there, all of good x. अब जो भी आपको क्वेश्चन दिया हो ना, you can compare. So if you are given u is equal to 3x plus 4y, and you are given px is 7, you are given py is 8. अब देख लो किस condition से it is matching. So I will find MRS. MRS will be MUX by MUY. MUX will be 3 by 4, 0.75. Then find out PX by PY. ये हो जाएगा 7 by 8. So now just compare कि whichever is greater or lesser, and then just find this condition. So all I mean is don't directly compare. यहाँ से मत बोल देना कि PX is cheaper than PY. So I will consume X. नहीं. Condition has to be checked with MRS and price ratio. और जो भी condition को match कर रहा होगा, accordingly you will say all of X or all of Y. That is it. Okay. So now I was just doing this question. तो देखो यहाँ पर बेटा, remember, suppose it says that 1 tea में 2 teaspoon sugar का डलता है. 2 teaspoon sugar का डलता है. Then your min function coefficients will always alter. Coefficients को हमेशा हमें reverse करना जरूरी है. So जब हम ये min function लिखेंगे, I will write this min function with 2 x, y. 2 spoons of sugar है, तो y के साथ 2 नहीं लगाना है. It will come with x, q, y. तो min function में हम क्या करते हैं? We equate whatever comes inside the min function. तो what is coming inside the min function now? 2x and y. मैंने इनको equate कर दिया. Now just imagine. Suppose you want to make 1 t. तो x का वैल्यू 1 हो गया. When you will plug x as 1, तो y का वैल्यू क्या आ जाएगा बेटा? 2. तो this is satisfying जो आपको क्वेश्चन में बोला गया था. That when t is 1, sugar is 2. यहां से मेरा फाइनल आंसर यही आ रहा है. That when x is 1, y is 2. But to get to that, I will have to reverse these coefficients. So always remember that you will never use the coefficients directly. You will reverse these coefficients. Same method will apply for substitutes also. Exactly. You will always reverse the coefficients and then solve. ठीक है? तो एक और तरीका है इसको लिखने का. अगर रिवर्स नहीं करने हैं coefficients, तो दूसरा मेथड ऐसा भी हो सकता है that this can be written as min of x, y by 2. This is also the correct form of utility function. क्यों? क्योंकि यहां देखो बेटा, if I have 2x is equal to y, तो x is equal to y by 2 हो गया ना. तो अगर मैं 2 spoon sugar की यूज करती हूँ, if y is 2, then x will be 2 by 2. I will be able to prepare 1 tea with 2 spoon of sugar. So these two are the correct ways of writing the utility function. This is a short kind of question in exam. They will give you different utility function with the statement and they will ask you कि इनमें से कौन सी statement के साथ utility function एकदम ठीक बैठता है, and you have to find the correct utility function. Okay. Now, then you must be aware of the bad goods and neutral good. अच्छा, इसमें again there is a question, numerical question which can be asked. So if you have okay, so for example, let's say that beta you are given like this, that a consumer either goes for 10 ball pens or 5 gel pens, right? Write the utility function for this. ऐसा कुछ दिया हुआ है. And you represent ball pens with x and you represent gel pens with y. Now, I mean, you can think of some other substitute code also. So now your utility function will be, so I either go for 10 ball pen or I go for 5 gel pen. So the way to write this utility function should be, you can either write it directly or you can find in ratio. मैं दोनों समझा देती हूँ. So either you can write 5x plus 10y, or because the ratio is 1:2, you can find x plus 2y. Y is this. अब देखो ध्यान से. Try to see that. Suppose I am going ahead and I want a utility of 100. My utility is 100. And now I'm going ahead and I am saying that either that utility can be satisfied using ball pen or that utility can be satisfied using gel pens. So I would need 10 ball pens, or let's reverse it. Sorry. Let me just reverse this concept. Utility को fix नहीं करते हैं. Let's say 10 ball pens give me a utility of 100. And I can either go for 10 ball pen or 5 gel pens. So 5 gel pens also give me a utility of 100. So here, what happens is, if I want this utility of 100, either I can go with 5 gel pens and I can get a utility of 100, or I can go for 10 ball pens and get a utility of 100. Now just replace 100 here. 100 is equal to 10 plus 2y. So If I put y as 0, my x will be 100. If I put x as 0, my y will be 50. यहाँ पे देख लो करके. If I just go ahead and I put 100 is equal to 5x plus 10y. If I put x as 0, my y will be 10. And if I put y as 0, my x will be 20. So the ratio in which I will be consuming good x and y will remain the same, that either you double the ball pens, either you use 20 ball pens, or you give me half of the gel pens, 5 of gel pens. और यहाँ से भी मुझे यही मिल रहा है. Either you double the ball pens, either you give me 20 ball pens, or you give me half of the gel pens. You give me 10 gel pens. Same here. Either you double the ball pens, ball pen was represented with X, either you double the ball pen, you give me 100 ball pens, or you half the gel pens, you give me just 50 gel pens. So in order to achieve this same ratio, that either you give me double the ball pens, or you give me half of the gel pens, I have to go ahead and reverse their coefficients. Only then I will be able to get the same rate of substitution. So that is why we will use the coefficient of this one here and the coefficient of this one here. I just have to go ahead and finally see it with comparing with the utility. Jab I replace it with some utility, so I should get the same results. Either I should be using double of the ball pens, or I should be using half of the gel pens. And both of them should yield the same amount of utility too. So we will just reverse the coefficient. ये चीज याद रखनी जरूरी है. So whenever you say u is equal to ax plus by, remember that this a is the coefficient that you would have got when it would have given you the statement for b, for y. And this b is the coefficient you are multiplying from the statement for x. कितना x use कर रहे हो, उसका कोएफिशिएंट यहां जाएगा, और कितना y यूज कर रहे हो उसका कोएफिशिएंट यहां जाएगा. Then you will form this substitute good utility function. Is that clear? Another thing which is very important, suppose beta in exam you are given a utility function which looks like this. Say u is equal to minus x square minus y square. Directly itna easy देंगे नहीं. They may just transform this function a bit. So let me also transform it. Let's say you are given 100 minus x square minus y square. Something like this. They give you the price of good x as 10, price of good y as 10, income of the consumer as 400, and they ask you calculate x star y star. अब हमें बहुत ध्यान से देखना है. See, my utility decreases as x increases. When I put x even as 1, एक minimum amount x और y का भी मैं consume करती हूँ, my utility will go below 100. So if x is 1 and y is 1, then u will be 100 minus 1 minus 1. That means 98. This negative sign is representing that x and y are neutral goods. Are bad goods. So because they are bad goods, ideally I don't want to consume them. So it does not matter in exam whether these goods are affordable or not affordable. You will go ahead and say that my x star will be 0 and y star will also be 0. My optima, my bliss point is that I consume 0 units of x and y. Because अगर मैं x और y का एक भी unit consume कर रही हूँ, even if I consume a single unit of x or a single unit of y, it will decrease my utility, as can be seen from here, right? So therefore, you will just say x star y star equal to 0, aankh band karke. Remember, this is a very important question. from the point of view of exam, how to deal with bad goods. You will consume 0 units of bad goods if possible. Okay, then you have budget line. Budget line mein we know what changes the slope of budget line, and concave ICs I have already asked you to deal with them. Now, post this, I have posted some questions here in which I have taken Cobb-Douglas function, and then I have gone ahead and I have given you one question on the BOGO scheme, and then I have given you one question with a transformed utility function with 3 good utility function, quasi-linear, complementary goods, finding the expenditure function, transformed utility function. ये सारे क्वेश्चन आपको खुद से करके आने हैं. For all of this, I will be providing you written solution. I have already written those solutions out. But today itself, all of you will try these questions related to utility function. Don't skip it for tomorrow, please. We don't have time. Now, we want to talk about CES utility function. What if it was 100 and 100 plus x square minus y square? Huh. So, beta, if your utility function is this, 100 plus x square minus y square, so we know that as y increases, utility decreases. So, I don't want to consume any unit of good y. So, my optima, it should suggest me that I should be spending all my income on good x because this is a bad good. So clearly I can see that x star will be m by px. I will spend all my money on good x and not consume a single unit of good y. You're right. So then you will only be consuming all of good y. When prices are increased and money also changes, the slope will be the high. This again is a question which a lot of you have done wrong in the tests. It depends. If the price of good x is 2, price of good y is 2, income of the consumer is 100, and ये देंगे नहीं, वो ऐसा देंगे question that suppose price doubles and income triples, then slope of budget line will, something like this. So now what you have to go ahead and do is, the best way to solve such questions is to go ahead and write some example. तो मैंने px को 1 ले लिया, py को 1 ले लिया, income को 100 ले लिया, and then मैंने px को double कर दिया, py को भी double कर दिया और income को triple कर दिया. And I can simply see that the slope of the budget line is px by py. So px by py is 1 in the first case, and px by py is also 1 in the second case. So the slope is unaffected here. So you will say that the slope of budget line is unchanged. Okay. As questions can be asked in exam that, what happens when your income halves, but the prices triple, yeah, something like that. So the best way to solve such questions, jo bhi diya ho, is to take an example and solve. That will help you get the right answer. Now, there is a concept called constant elasticity of substitution utility function. Ideally, CES is more powerful in the production side. Matlab, usually we talk about CES production function. Utility function ki baat nahi karte hain. But nevertheless, this concept was given by Hicks and you should remember this. Intercepts will change, of course, beta, because your intercept is m by px. So it is 100 by 1 and this is 300 by 2, 150. Intercepts will change. Okay. So then in this case, but before I teach you this, we revise this. एक बार थोड़ा सा समझ लो. There is a difference between homothetic function and homogeneous function. Homothetic function basically means that your जो भी आपका utility function है या जो भी आपका production function है, whether after scaling you are able to take that scaling factor out or not. जैसे for example, if I tell you u is equal to x plus y, So when I will double x and double y, then I can simply say that this will be, t can come out and this will be x plus y. If you are able to take this scale factor out and get back your original utility function, then it is a homogeneous function. तो हम इसको homogeneous function बोल सकते हैं. Take another example. Suppose I tell you u is equal to root x plus y. Now I am scaling x and y. मैंने x की जगह tx कर दिया और y की जगह ty कर दिया. Can I take this t completely out of my utility function? No, there is no way. कुछ भी कर लो आप t बाहर नहीं लेके आप. You won't be able to take t out and get back your original utility function. There is no way that you will be able to write it like this. No way. So therefore we can go ahead and we can say that this is a non-homogeneous utility function. So homogeneity or non-homogeneity is related to the scaling factor. Can you bring the scaling factor out or not? But when we talk about homothetic, ये तो homogeneous हो गया. Now when I talk about the homothetic function कहता है, again, whether it is production or consumption does not matter. If it is utility function, it says that MRS should be a function of y by x. And if it is a production side function, isoquant, तो वो बोलता है कि MRTS should be a function of k by l. So if I am able to bring MRS as a function of y by x, then it is a homothetic function. Again, let me give you an example. So if I tell you that u is equal to ln x plus ln y, और मैं यहाँ से MRS निकालूं, I will get MRS as MUX by MUY. So this will become as 1 by x upon 1 by y. That means y by x. तो ये तो ठीक है कि यहाँ पर जो हमारा MRS है, it is a function of y by x. So this is a homothetic function. क्योंकि देखो यहाँ पे y by x आ रहा है. But if I ask you that your utility function is root x plus y. अब मैंने MUX निकाला, इसको differentiate किया with respect to x. So I got 1 by 2 root x. Then I found out MUY. मैंने इसको differentiate किया with respect to y. I got 1 by y. Now I find out MUX by MUY. So I get 1 by 2 root x. This is not a function of y by x. Y to missing it. I can't get it back in the form of y by x. So if I cannot get it in the form of y by x, then it is a non-homothetic function. ये homothetic नहीं है. Right? So you must go ahead and you must try to see the difference between the two. Homogeneous और homothetic दोनों अलग चीजें हैं. Homothetic बोलता है कि आपका जो स्लोप निकल रहा है इंडिफरेंस कर्व का, वो आपके कमोडिटी कंजम्पशन के रेशियो का कुछ फंक्शन हो. It should be some function of y by x. But homogeneous बोलता है that you should be scaling x and y, then your utility should also be scaled. It was decreasing. Yes, you're right. Returns to scale I can still find, but again, but that is in production side. Consumption में usually scaling पे हम इतना ध्यान नहीं देते हैं. That is why I told you this is more of a consumption production concept. It is true for every quasi-linear. Yes. Good question. Every homothetic function will be homogeneous or not? Yes, that is a correct statement. It will automatically be homogeneous. If it is homothetic, it will be homogeneous. Again, I have added that question in the assignment. I will share that with you. Okay, ये हो गया. So now elasticity of substitution. ये ज़्यादा concept is used in the production side. But यहाँ के लिए just remember, it just tells me how y by x changes as MRS changes. So which means that if I just make an indifference curve, right? So suppose ये point की बात करते हैं बेटा. At any point on the indifference curve, I can find the slope. Slope will be this tangent line. And I can also find y by x ratio. ये कैसे निकलेगा? By passing a ray through the origin. ये एक particular ratio को depict करता है. Right? Again, I can go ahead and I can pass another ray through the origin. ये एक अलग y by x रेशियो को डिपेक्ट करता है, and I can find MRS. So the elasticity of substitution is telling me कि जब मैं पॉइंट A से B पर जा रही हूं, when I am moving from point A to B, this ratio is changing. And so is this slope. Slope is also changing. So what is the percentage change of the ratio and slope? That is what elasticity of substitution is telling me. I understand both are changing. जब हम A से B पे गए तो ये जो line through the origin है ये भी change हो गई और ये slope भी change हो गया. But इनका ratio कितना है? What is the percentage change in y by x when MRS is changing? That is elasticity of substitution. Again, it is more useful in the production side. तो हम वहां पे एक बार दोबारा revise करेंगे. But as of now, just remember it like this. Another thing. If I talk about this homothetic function, तो हमने बोला कि इसका जो slope है, it has to be a function of the y by x. What does it mean diagrammatically? It means that if I pass a ray through the origin, मतलब I am holding y by x constant. मैंने y by x को constant रखा है. And I go ahead and I tell you, look, this is my indifference curve. मैंने एक IC बना दिया. This is my another indifference curve. Then, as long as I am on the same ray through the origin, मैं same ray पर हूँ, it means that my MRS should also be the same. तो अगर मैं ये दो lines बनाऊंगी, tangent lines बनाऊंगी, they must be parallel to each other. Right? If this is satisfied, then I can say that it is homothetic. तो homothetic का क्या मतलब है? It is there in the video lectures also, but just remember this much. I am passing a ray through the origin. After passing this ray through the origin, if I find the MRS of these ICs and they are the same, मतलब जब तक y by x same है, MRS भी same आ रहा है, that means that it is a homothetic preference. This is the other definition. Then I want you to do this question. Solution is provided. Okay. Last concept for the day. This is Marshallian versus Hicksian. So just think about it. See, in LPP, we have a concept which is called as primal versus dual. Excuse me, sorry. It's called as primal versus dual. Dual statement is the reverse statement of the primal. And this concept can be very well applied in the concept of economics also. इसको हम microeco में भी apply कर सकते हैं. जैसे for example, if I tell you that microeconomics में we are saying maximize utility subject to budget constraint, subject to the given level of income, तो इसका dual हो जाएगा minimize expenditure. Income and expenditure are the same only. So maximize will convert to minimize, and we can say minimize expenditure subject to given level of utility. यहाँ पे हम utility को constant रखेंगे. We want to minimize the expenditure. यहाँ पे हम utility को maximize करेंगे. We want to do it with subject to given level of the income. यहाँ से जो x star y star निकलता है इस problem के through, it is a function of income and prices. And this x star y star, which is a function of income and prices, this is called as Marshallian demand. इसको हम Marshallian demand. If we do the reverse, अगर हम dual करते हैं, if I try to minimize expenditure subject to given level of utility, so if I just do the reverse of it, then यहाँ से बेटा what x star y star we get, it's a function of utility. क्योंकि see constant यहाँ पे utility का factor है. So it's a function of utility and prices. And this x star y star, it is called as Hicksian demand or compensated demand. Hicksian demand or compensated demand. So when I talk about Hicksian demand, जब मैं Hicksian demand की बात करती हूँ, it is a function of utility In the background, we have minimized expenditure subject to given level of utility. When I talk about Marshallian demand, it is a function of the income and prices. In the background, we have maximized utility subject to the given level of income. ये हो गया आपका फर्स्ट एस्पेक्ट, इतना समझा हमने अभी ये वाला पार्ट, दिस पार्ट. Now, what we will get from this is something which is known as indirect utility function. Matlab, for example, beta, I am given u is equal to xy. And my budget constraint is px into x plus py into y is equal to income of the consumer. And मैंने एक Lagrange form कर दिया xy plus lambda m minus px into x minus py into y. आपने इसको solve किया. All that is not required. हमें पता है कि इससे जो solution आएगा, we will get m by 2 px and y star का value आ जाएगा m by 2 py. Just remember this. There is no time to solve this in exam. You have to remember that whenever you will have a Cobb-Douglas utility function, इसका general form क्या होगा? Its x star will be alpha upon alpha plus beta m by px and y star will be beta upon alpha plus beta m by py. ये याद रखना जरूरी है. Nobody has this much time in exam that you will do the entire problem. You should remember that this is just x to the power half and y to the power half and solve for x and y. Alpha को अगर ये half half है तो alpha half हो जाएगा, beta भी half हो जाएगा. If this is x to the power 3 by 4, y to the power 1 by 4, then alpha will be 3 by 4 and beta will be 1 by 4. So you have to remember these two formulas. Nobody should start doing this from the scratch. Ki, theek hai, let's just do MRS equal to px by py. No time for that. So you will get x and y as this. So your indirect utility will become x star into y star and that can be written as m square by 4 px py. ये आपकी indirect utility हो गई है. अब हमें क्या करना है? I have got my indirect utility function. उस पे हम Roy's identity लगा सकते हैं. And what Roy's identity says that you can get back your x star by following this formula. And what is this formula saying? This formula says that x is equal to del iu by del px upon del iu by del m with a minus sign. So how is this useful in exam? Suppose in exam, आपको एक indirect utility function दे दिया गया. That m square by 4 px py. Consider this as your indirect utility function. और यहाँ से उन्होंने बोल दिया calculate x star. Then you have to apply Roy's identity. तो Roy's identity ने क्या बोला कि x star will be minus differentiate indirect utility with respect to x, with respect to px, differentiate indirect utility with respect to py, differentiate indirect utility with respect to income and put a negative sign. This is what Roy's identity is saying. So you have to directly go ahead and apply this Roy's identity and get the answer for x. This is exactly what I have gone ahead and I have given you as homework. I have given you an indirect utility function and you have to find the Marshallian demand of x and y. मतलब आपको एक बारी इस function को px से differentiate करना होगा और यहाँ पे लिखोगे. You have to differentiate with income, यहाँ लिखोगे. Put a negative sign and that will be the value of x star. And same for y, then you will replace it with py and income. Now, the other thing which is important here, okay, let me explain this again. So what I have done, beta, is the following. I am saying, suppose you go ahead and you get indirect utility function. No, beta. We don't have to assume prices are equal. 9. If your utility function is xy, so px, py can be any value, does not matter. X star will always be m by 2 px, y star will always be m by 2 py. अब px 4 भी हो सकता है, py 10 भी हो सकता है, px 1 हो सकता है, py भी 1 हो सकता है, does not matter. you will always have x star m by 2px and y star m by 2py. That will not change. That will always be the same. This you are getting, मतलब in the background इसमें हमने ये किया है कि हमने MRS को px by py से equate किया होगा, फिर इसको budget line में डाला होगा, but the final answer you can just remember, you will get this. और अगर यहाँ पर कोई भी और पावर है अल्फा बीटा, then x star will be alpha upon alpha plus beta m by px and y star will be beta upon alpha plus beta m by py. That is how you have to remember. Now, talking about Roy's identity. So Roy's identity basically goes ahead and says that suppose you have found out your maximum utility. अब मेरी utility तो ऐसे given थी x y के terms में, but फिर x की कोई value आ गई होगी in terms of income and prices, y की भी कोई value आ गई होगी in terms of income and prices. I have plugged those x and y values here and I have got the maximum utility possible. And in exam, you are already given that. So it is given to you that, you know what, your indirect utility is m square by 4px py. ये आपको already given है that this is the maximum utility a consumer has got. And then they're asking you, find the x star. Find out x कितना रहा होगा. Find its Marshallian demand, right? So in this case, you have to apply the Roy's identity. Roy's identity says that if you are given this indirect utility function, you can find this x using the formula, differentiate indirect utility with respect to px, differentiate indirect utility with respect to income, and put a negative sign, and that will be the value of x that you will be getting. If we have x as quasi-linear, we cannot take out Marshallian demand. Correct. This is all of this is better for well-defined preferences. Otherwise, कहीं पे भी नहीं कर सकते हैं. You cannot do it for substitute good, complementary good. कहीं पे भी नहीं कर सकते. This is only if you have well-defined preferences given to you. But this is what Roy's identity is saying. Now, just one more thing that I want to discuss here, which is your Shepard's lemma, because all of you are confused between Roy's identity and Shepard's lemma. The Shepard's lemma gives you what is called as Hicksian demand. देखो, Roy's identity देता है Marshallian demand. Roy's identity के लिए you need indirect utility function. Marshallian demand is always a function of income and prices. तो Roy's identity ने क्या बोला कि अगर आप मुझे इनडायरेक्ट यूटिलिटी फंक्शन दे दोगे तो इससे मैं आपको x और y स्टार बता दूंगा एज अ फंक्शन ऑफ इनकम एंड प्राइसेस. मतलब आई विल गिव यू बैक योर मार्शेलियन डिमांड. आई विल गिव यू बैक द मार्शेलियन डिमांड. बट शेपर्ड्स लेमा ने बोला दैट आई कैन गिव यू हिक्सियन डिमांड. एंड व्हाट इज हिक्सियन डिमांड? Hicksian demand is a function of utility and prices. But Shepard's lemma के लिए what do I require? I require the minimum expenditure incurred. तो इसके लिए हम एक last example देखते हैं. Suppose you have a utility function xy. यहां से हमें पता चल गया x star will be m by 2px, y star हो जाएगा m by 2py. So if I find the indirect utility function, I have to put this x here, I have to put this y here, and my indirect utility function will be m by 2px into m by 2py. तो बच्चे ये आ जाएगा m square by 4px py. ये मेरी utility हो गई, maximum utility possible. Now, I can go ahead and I can take m on one side and everything else on the other side. So if I find out the value of m from here, so what will I get? 4 px py u. I'm just taking this here under root. ये मेरी income हो जाएगी. I am just finding the value of income from this utility function. But we know that income and expenditure are the same thing. So I can just go ahead and instead of income, I can just write expenditure. तो मेरा expenditure हो जाएगा 4px py u under root. ये मेरा expenditure function है. In exam, you may be directly given this expenditure function. आपको directly ये given भी हो सकता है. So if you are directly given this, अगर आपको पहले ही दे दिया that let the expenditure function be under root 4x px py u, और उसके बाद उन्होंने बोला कि find Hicksian demand of good x, ऐसा कुछ बोल दिया बच्चे. So how can you find Hicksian demand? बहुत simple है. Hicksian demand बोलता है according to Shepard's lemma that you must differentiate E with respect to px. You have to differentiate this with respect to px. तो कर दो differentiate. देखो I will just rewrite this thing. Under root 4 को मैं 2 लिख रही हूँ. py and u are constants, तो इनको मैंने अलग लिख दिया. और px के comparison में differentiate करना है, so I have written this px separately. And now I have to differentiate this with respect to px. So what will I go ahead and get? I will get 2 root py into u. इसको as it is अलग कर दो. And differentiation of px will be 1 by 2 root px. So 2 and 2 will get cancelled. And I will get py into u by px under root. This is your Hicksian demand. So Hicksian demand or compensated demand भी बोलते हैं ऐसे. It has to be a function of prices and utility. कभी-कभी exam में they can ask you to calculate this also. They may say, assume that the utility is 100. The price of good X is 1. The price of good Y is 2. Calculate the Hicksian demand. Then you can just plug these values and just find out the answer. So the point is to find the Hicksian demand, the rule that is used, that is called as Shepard's lemma. उसको हम Shepard's lemma बोलते हैं. It may be asked in exam. And the rule that is used to calculate the Marshallian demand, that is called as Roy's identity. Okay. So this is it that I wanted to go ahead and discuss today. And I will take 1 or 2 more sessions and I will try to finish off microeconomics revision in a similar series. But till then, what you have to go ahead and do is all these questions that are given in between, right? You have to go ahead and do these questions, right? And then you can just compare it with the answer sheet. So if it is homothetic function, beta, MRTS is a function of K by L. So jo bhi whatever comes on the y-axis, na? So K is coming here, L is coming here. So if I find this ray through the origin, ye ho gaya K by L. This is my isoquant. So you just have to go ahead and find the slope. So ye MRTS ho gaya. So we will say MRTS is a function of K by L. Okay, so you are aiming for gate only. Can you talk about how last phase prep should go? Last phase is this kind of preparation. You pick up a topic and you should know everything related to that topic. Beta, gate is not very difficult. Gate is going to be easy paper. But the only thing that is required for gate exam is that you know these small integrities. How to solve basic utility functions. How to go ahead and, kisi se bhi. The only issue with gate exam is that they have very vast course. Matlab, they can ask you econometrics also. They can ask you public eco also. They can ask you micro also. They will not ask difficult questions, right? But they will go ahead and they will ask you anything and everything. So the only way to prepare for the exam is to go ahead and solve easier but all type of questions. Like I am making this. I will take another 2 days to make the next set of microeconomics notes, but I'm making sure that, I will try it out. The aim is that the notes that I'm making should be thorough, right? And to have that, I need 2 days for each set of notes that I prepare, because I need to put those numericals in between so that you can go ahead and You can solve those numericals also. GATE will not ask very in-depth question, but it will ask you very conceptual questions. Jaise, as I told you, this question was a question that came in GATE. X square plus y square plus 2xy minus 100a square plus b square as a utility function. So you have to be very sure that you are very good conceptually for you to go ahead and attempt GATE. वो concept के लिए it is important that if you are in the GATE batch or if you are in the if you are in MA batch, you also do the live lectures, you do the advanced lecture, क्योंकि वो conceptual questions GATE में आते हैं. बहुत difficult maths involved नहीं होगा, but concept बहुत ज़्यादा involved होंगे. That's it that you need for GATE. हाँ, homework question के लिए ना बेटा, that is there within this PDF. So this PDF is available on your group. So all that you have to do is just open up this PDF and जहाँ पे भी I have written it with black. These are all your homework questions that you have to practice. Okay. So every year the target score is pretty different, but all I can tell you is that 50 to 60 is a very decent and good target score for IIT and GATE. Last time, what happened is that once students were selected for this through IIT and GATE, what happened is that they had their separate exam. IIT Delhi ने अपना exam किया था, IIT कानपुर ने अपना exam किया था. So अभी के लिए our aim is to get a decent 50-60 in the exam out of 100. And once we go ahead and we get that, and you get selected for the second round, then I will do a separate series of preparation with you कि उस exam में क्या आता है and उसमें हमें कैसे prepare करना होगा. So that will be a separate thing that I will take with you. So don't get just don't see the cutoff की cutoff तो बहुत low जाती है. It should be still our aim that we should be able to get a pretty decent goal. मतलब don't think कि cut off अगर सिर्फ 23 गई है या 20 गई है तो I am just aiming for 20 out of 100. That is not the way to do it. You have to aim 50, 55, 60 in IIT to get a good IIT and to sit for IIT. Okay, I think I have answered all questions related to IIT and GATE. Solution manual I will upload now. Yes. We will have that also. Don't worry. I will have marathon related to all subjects. At least I will revise once with you guys. What about inferior and given beta? What's the doubt there?
Ma'am, I'm having a doubt. Like, sometimes for the inferior good, we differentiate with the income also. There was one question that whether we have to identify whether it's an inferior or given good. So you did something. I didn't remember it that how you did, but it was just like that you're differentiating with the respect to income, and it was coming as negative, so it was inferior.
Exactly. Because when my income increases, if demand decreases, then it is an inferior good. So if you go ahead and you give me the demand of X like this, then I can simply see that there is a negative relationship between income and demand. So you can also differentiate and check how X changes as M changes, and you will get -2 by M square. So if you are getting a negative sign, it is an inferior good. But because we know that once I have declared that this is an inferior good, it means it has a negative relationship with income. Just remember, it does not mean, ये थोड़ा confusing हो जाता है, it does not mean it will not obey the law of demand. It will still obey the law of demand. This is still important. So sometimes in options, they will give you like this, that they will give you something like this, and then they will say that X is inferior, X is given, X is normal, something like this they will tell you. तो अब हमें ये समझना होगा that this good has an inverse relationship with income, and since it has an inverse relationship with income, it is definitely an inferior good. But what is a given good? A given good is a good which not only has an inverse relationship with income, But additionally, it should also have a direct relationship with price. So just by looking at this equation, I cannot say that this is a given good also, right? But if the reverse is true, if you go ahead and you tell me that, X is equal to the demand of X is given such that the quantity demanded is equal to 4 plus PX, then I know that there is a direct relationship between price and quantity. This is a given good. And from here, since all given goods are inferior, I can say that this is also inferior. But yahan pe I cannot mark that X is given because here there is no relationship that I know about the price. And without commenting on the price, I cannot say that this will also be a given good. I can maximum say that this will be an inferior good, but it may obey the law of demand still. So again, I think this is one of the questions that came in one of the very, very early 2006 or 7 in DSE. Very similar question was asked. So here they will give you two statements that assume X is a good which has a negative relationship with income. And then they will give you four options that X is a given good, X is an inferior good. Given के लिए मैं तब तक sure नहीं हो सकती हूँ जब तक I don't know how it acts with prices. And this is just a way to check. If you get this negative, it means that as income increases, demand decreases, therefore a inferior good. This will be uploaded on your portal. Yes, madam. Okay. Yes, Kritika. Now you can tell me. If you want, you can also unmute and tell me. Okay. So, see, your health is, of course, the first thing that we need to focus on. If at all it happens that you need some more time and you are not able to go ahead and sit for the GATE exam, we can go back and we can aim for CUET. That's not a big thing. Don't worry. The point that you have to go ahead and remember is you need to first strengthen your health and then focus on studies. Now, if you think that you are not able to sit for hours to study, it is fine. You can always, leave out the advanced lecture, the live lecture, and you can only go ahead and focus on the basic and intermediate lectures. Within the basic and intermediate lectures also, you can go ahead and you can segregate. So if you, for example, think that you pick up the syllabus of GATE and you realize that, okay, this is a particular topic which is not even written in the syllabus and it has never ever been asked in exam, right? You can just go ahead and skip that. So you can go ahead and you can do selective study at this point of time rather than studying everything. For example, we know that whether it is GATE, whether it is CUET, whether it is IIT, there will be a question on tax. They will go ahead and they will ask you, suppose a tax is charged on the consumer or on the producer, what will happen? Such question has to be practiced. There will be a question on deadweight loss. So if you know that a particular topic will be asked in exam, you have to go ahead and do that topic. तो वो चैप्टर्स अभी करने ज्यादा जरूरी हैं जो आपको लगता है कि इमीडिएट करने पे इट विल फेच यू मार्क्स. द ओनली थिंग दैट इज इंपॉर्टेंट इज सेलेक्टिव बट इंटेलिजेंट स्टडिंग. लाइक फॉर एग्जाम्पल, last time I kept telling students कि IIT में De Morgan's theorem will come in exam. It will come in exam. I gave that in mock test also कि ये De Morgan's theorem पे question आएगा ही आएगा. Still many didn't practice. So if you don't do intelligent practicing, then nothing can be done. Even I cannot help you in that case. You have to go ahead and do all the mock papers of GATE. I am trying to go ahead and I am trying to make that mock paper as inclusive as possible. हर मॉक पेपर में जो टॉपिक्स इंक्लूड होंगे, इट विल बी वेरी डिफरेंट फ्रॉम द प्रीवियस मॉक पेपर एंड विल हैव all kind of questions. Same is for CUET, same is for IIT. The kind of question you will see in one paper will not be repeated in the other paper and they will be very different. So the aim is you practice those mock papers. The aim is कि अगर आप किसी भी चीज के लिए टाइम नहीं है, you don't have time for assignment, you don't have time for test, the basic thing that you can do is at least do the questions that I am giving now. जो questions मैं रोज, especially you know that in the IIT and in the MA group, we are also taking problem sets related to IIT and ISI. Do those problem sets. वो problem sets बहुत important है. So the everyday problem set that I post, those 10 questions, those 7 questions related to a subject, वो करो. That will help you for IIT. That will help you for GATE. And for CUET, the question bank that I'm preparing is enough. Do that question bank and do these marathons. क्योंकि इन मैराथन्स में जो भी CUET में या जो भी IIT गेट में क्वेश्चंस पॉसिबल हैं, वो मैं यहाँ पर लिख रही हूँ टू enhance your base, especially if you're starting now. So I want you to go ahead and do these questions also. That is enough. If you can't do the assignments given, if you can't do the test, no problem. But this is the minimum that you should be doing. The questions that I'm giving now have to be practiced. And same for maths. If you look into the math section, every day I am posting 2 to 3 questions of IIT or IIT and or DSC, and followed by that I am posting a problem set in the math section. This is useful for students who are aiming for IIT and ISI. You need to do that also. But just pick up a subject, do all questions in that subject, and whatever I am adding on daily basis, just do those questions simultaneously. So for example, this is what I do. I mean, I follow this timetable, so you should definitely be following this timetable. Every day when I start my day, I pick up 10 questions, 10 important questions for IIT and ISI. I write down their solutions and I give you that problem set and that solution. So if every morning I can follow this timetable of solving 10 questions and giving it to you, you can also go ahead and follow the same timetable कि जैसे ही मैंने post किया उसको group में, you do it immediately then and there, right? So the aim is that those daily problem sets have to be done, and those for recorded question bank, you can just write them once and then you can just revise it through your register. You don't have to look into the video again and again. Yes, I will prepare. Maybe this week I will tell you what you should be doing in the last 2 months of CUET. I'll make a separate video on that, huh? Yes, you're right. So, so expenditure says this only. So when price increases, if total revenue increases, or decreases, total revenue decreases, it is inelastic. And when price increases, total revenue decreases, or total revenue increases when price decreases, then it is elastic. So if they move in opposite direction, elastic, otherwise inelastic. If you cannot sit for hours, then my suggestion would be that you go ahead and you can maybe even lie down, but put on those, you can go ahead and put on the recordings on, and you can just listen to those recordings, right? You can just go ahead and you have to listen what I am saying in those recordings, and that will keep things in your mind. So it's okay if you cannot write down, but just go ahead and listen to the video lectures and try to just keep things in your mind that this is the way to do it. Okay. And if still, your health is not with you, it is fine. Everything is secondary. You have to first get well before you can go ahead and you can start preparing. I can still assure you that if you have heard all my lectures, if you have been, because I have seen you from the very start in the lectures, I can tell you that you will be able to get through one of the exam. Don't worry. CUET, you will be able to clear. I can tell you now only. But you have to revise those concepts. So keep listening to the video lectures, even though if you don't feel like writing it down. So, but an equi-marginal utility just says that the marginal utility by price of good 1 will be equal to marginal utility by price of good 2 will be equal to marginal utility of income. So, for example, ऐसा कुछ है that I start consuming good X and Y. I consume the first unit, second unit, third unit, and correspondingly आपको इनकी marginal utility is given है. I think I took this question in 100 CUT test series. So you're given this marginal utilities now, that this is 10, 50, 8, 45, 7, 40, ऐसे करके कुछ दिया हुआ है, MUX and MUY. So marginal utility, equi-marginal utility ये बोलता है कि अगर मैं आपको इनकी prices भी दे दूं, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, ऐसा करके कुछ दे दूं, then you will consume till the point where MUX by PX will be equal to MUY by PY. You need to go ahead and you need to equate the two. और जब ये दोनों equal हो जाएंगे, that is when you will stop your consumption. So इसको एक और तरीके से ऐसे भी देख सकते हैं that if MUX by PX is greater than MUY by PY, अगर ऐसा कुछ दिया हुआ है आपको, right? So what does this mean? If I just rewrite this thing, it will mean MUX by MUY is greater than PX by PY. So this means that your MRS is greater than PX by PY. It means good X is cheaper than good Y. So you should increase the consumption of X and decrease the consumption of Y. तो कभी कभी एग्जाम में क्या बोल देते हैं ना, they will tell you that imagine that MUX by PX is greater than MUY by PI, then what should the consumer be doing? अब यहाँ पर उन्होंने ये तो मेंशन किया नहीं that it is a substitute good या normal good या which good. तो all that I can say is कि अगर मैं इसकी जगह MRS की जगह 1 plug in करूं, I will get that good X is cheaper, so I should be increasing X and decreasing Y. So इसका conclusion ऐसे आ जाता है. But you have to consume till the point that MUX by PX become equal to MUY by PY. That is the law of equi-marginal utility.
And ma'am, how will we relate it to marginal utility of money?
So ultimately, both of them have to be equal to MUM. So ideally, this is what is assumed to be a constant. And we just assume, so very simple example, देखो. Suppose I tell you U is equal to XY and फिर से वही budget line लेते हैं, PX into X plus PY into Y is equal to M. मैंने इसका Lagrange form किया, XY plus lambda, M minus PX into X minus PY into Y. Now I am differentiating this with respect to X. What will I get? Y plus lambda minus PX is equal to 0. So from here I will get Y is equal to PX into lambda or Y by PX is equal to lambda. ये मेरे को मिल गया. अब देखो कि utility function था XY. तो MUX क्या है? Marginal utility of X. Y. If I differentiate this with respect to X, मुझे Y मिलेगा. तो अब मैं क्या कर सकती हूँ ना कि ये Y कुछ नहीं है, but ये basically MUX है. ये PX है. ये lambda है. और बेटा मैंने अभी आपको बोला that this lambda is nothing but marginal utility of money. This tells me how my utility changes as income changes. तो यहां से भी तो यही रूल आ रहा है that MUX by PX should be equal to MUM. This is what this is saying.
So ma'am, when the price increases, why were we showing the increase in price by a shift and not by a pivot? If we consider the marginal utility of money as constant in the diagram that you had just.
In that Marshallian demand diagram, yes. When PX will increase, MUX by PX will decrease. And when PX will decrease, MUX by PX will increase. Correct. But that is only given by Marshall. Matlab, it has a lot of limitations. But if someone asks you that the utility concept of demand of money or the derivation of demand from the utility was given by, then Marshall gave this and this is how he discovered it. Correct.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay.
Ma'am?
Yes.
Ma'am, here the X and Y value we will calculate and then we put it, na, and then we'll find the marginal utility with respect to money.
Not necessary ना. So if you remember, देखो यहाँ पर whenever you will solve this utility function, I know कि यहाँ से मेरा जो x star आता है वो m by 2px आता है और जो y star आता है वो m by 2py आता है. So if I just consider that, तो यहाँ पे y की जो मेरी वैल्यू आएगी फाइनली वो m by 2py आएगी डिवाइडेड बाय px. तो जो मेरा मार्जिनल यूटिलिटी ऑफ मनी का फॉर्मूला बनता है यहाँ से, I will get m by 2px py. So I don't have to know कि x और y क्या है. Even if you just give me income and prices, मैं ये lambda का वैल्यू निकाल पाऊंगी. It will be m by 2px.